We all have heard about the term generational trauma and wondered if it stems from a traumatic accident or incident in the past that someone in our family suffered. If you have been wanting to understand this better, then this video is for you. Generational trauma refers to the emotional residue of traumatic experiences that gets passed down through generations. It's like an old song playing on repeat, shaping our beliefs, fears, and behaviors without us even realizing it. So you might be wondering, how does something that happened to my great-grandparents affect me today? Well, buckle up, because here's how generational trauma can sneak its way into our everyday life. Do you ever catch yourself thinking in ways that seem familiar, almost like a family script? Generational trauma can mold our thought patterns and beliefs like, I'm not good enough, or I must always be strong. These notions might have originated from our ancestors' survival strategies. The coping techniques we use to deal with stress or adversity can be influenced by generational trauma. Maybe you've inherited a tendency to avoid conflict or numb emotions. Understanding the roots of these coping strategies can help us reshape them if we look at these patterns with compassion and curiosity. Have you ever had a reoccurring issue in your relationships? Generational trauma can play a part. If your family history includes trust issues or unhealthy relationship dynamics, you might unknowingly recreate those patterns in your own connections. Do you ever wonder why certain situations trigger intense emotional reactions? Generational trauma can create sensitivities to specific triggers, reminding us of past pain that we might not even remember on a conscious level. Case in point, the bombings that happened in Hiroshima and Nagasaki caused anxiety over radiation and health effects even in the second and third generations. But generational trauma isn't limited to accidents, wars, or disasters. It can also have behavioral patterns that are carried out unconsciously. For example, if someone lived in an abusive household and could not trust his parents as a child, that person will grow up to be someone having difficulty trusting people or even forming close relationships. This behavioral pattern can pass on from one generation to the next unless resolved with help. Sometimes, self-care feels like an uphill battle. Generational trauma can impact how we care for ourselves. People might struggle with guilt when prioritizing their own needs, thinking they should always be sacrificing for others. Let's not forget those sneaky, unhelpful habits we adopt as defense mechanisms like people-pleasing, over-explaining, or even self-sabotage. These behaviors can be rooted in our family history's trauma, designed to protect us from repeating painful experiences. Picture a family with a history of racial discrimination. The trauma experienced by their ancestors might lead to feelings of inadequacy, impacting their self-esteem and career choices. To fully grasp how generational trauma impacts our daily lives, we must delve into defense mechanisms, strategies our minds employ to protect us from painful emotions or thoughts. Ever brush off something distressing by saying, "It's not a big deal"? That's denial in action. An example could be ignoring a family history of addiction and pretending like it doesn't affect you. Have you ever criticized someone for traits you actually possess? That's projection. If your ancestors faced financial struggles, you might unconsciously project your fears of instability onto others. Have you ever snapped at someone who didn't deserve it? Displacement is at play. If your parents suppressed their anger, you might unknowingly direct your frustration at an unrelated situation. Now, let's dive into what experiences qualify as trauma. Interpersonal trauma includes experiences like abuse, neglect, or betrayal. For instance, if a grandparent endured a traumatic relationship, their descendants might struggle with forming healthy connections. Remember, recognizing and addressing these patterns is a step toward healing. If you feel overwhelmed, reaching out to a therapist can be immensely helpful. Many resources are available, such as the therapists listed on our website and app. The journey to understanding and healing from generational trauma isn't easy, but it's a powerful step towards breaking the cycle. By recognizing its presence in our day-to-day lives, we can rewrite the narrative and free ourselves from its grip.